What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. And today I'm looking ahead to the month of April and picking out my 5 top fights for the month. And you know what? It's one of those months where you look at it and there's the big UFC pay-per-view card in the middle of it, and there's a good few cards from everywhere else. UFC Fight Nights, the big Bellator card, a massive Cage Warriors card here in Ireland, and PFL obviously as well, putting on their great cards as they tend to do. So today I am going to pick 5 fights, as I said, and there's actually 4 of those different promotions all featured because and I didn't even mean to do it that way. I'm picking out the 5 fights I'm most excited for here, but they just happen to be in 4 different promotions. So we've had the first of the month already gone. So I'm looking ahead to the rest of the month here. And it's funny because there's 4 more Saturdays in the weekend. And there's actually 2 fights in the first weekend, and then 1 fight from each weekend going forward. So we have something massive to look forward to. For me anyway, the best fights of the month coming in 4 different weekends. So that's very, very good to be able to have a lot to look forward to in a month of April like we have now. Let's get into it and let's look at the first fight, because the first fight is a fight that, if you haven't been paying attention to last year, maybe you won't understand why it is a fight that I think really stands out. But to me, it really is. And that fight is between Scheffel and Bruno Cappelozza at PFL 2. That's on April 7th. And I was so fascinated by, I am so fascinated by this fight because of what happened last year. So the last time, they met last year. They met at last year's PFL regular season, and it happened on in the summer of last year. And I think it was a big shock to most people what actually happened in that fight, because Bruno Cappelozza came into last season as the favourite. He'd won it the season before. Like I was talking about, I compared him to Junior Dos Santos. I was thinking like, this guy can go on a serious run, maybe win a few seasons of the PFL. I thought like, even let's say I think he could possibly get down to light heavyweight. Even if not, I think he could do well even if he was in the UFC in the heavyweight division. He's such a good athlete and everything like that. And then Sheffel had fought Delia in the earlier round of the season, and he had been knocked out in the second round after taking a few knockdowns. And I was kind of thinking about him like, question, is he even that good, right? And then he goes out and he just takes apart Bruno Cappelozza, wins a unanimous decision over 3 rounds, then goes on and beats Juan Adams. Bruno Cappelozza ends up getting injured, if memory serves me right, and pulling out of the he was scheduled to fight Denis Goltsov, if I'm not mistaken. Would probably or possibly have fought Sheffel again in that season, but it didn't end up happening. And he had beaten Delia earlier on in the season, so for that fight to happen the way it did, it was a massive shock, I think, to a lot of people, and definitely to Bruno Cappelozza. So what we have here is a guy in Scheffel who last year, against all odds, won that fight and is trying to do it again here. And you have the guy he beat who was, embarrassed is unfair, but like he was beaten by a massive underdog, I suppose you would put it, in that fight. And he is looking for his retribution in his very next fight. The last fight he had was that fight 10 months ago against Scheffel, after going on a 6-fight win streak before that, beating the likes of Delia a couple of times, and Jamel Jones, who's a big, strong heavyweight. The only fight he's lost in the last 10 is to Yuri Prochazka before he got to the PFL. So this is a massive fight for Cappelozza. We know in the heavyweight division, it's very hard to go undefeated. Like, he didn't even need to win the fight per se. He was still into the playoffs. The injury came and all of that, but how much of that had got to do with the actual fight? I just think there's a lot on the line here. There's a lot up for grabs. There's a lot up for debate with the meaning of this fight, but how it goes as well. And I think it's fascinating. Like, you look at Cappelozza, and he's won a lot of fights a lot of different ways. He beat Stuart Dawson, ground and pounded him. He knocked out, he beat Delia with a decision. He knocked him out as well. He knocked a few lads down with his jabs. He threw a head kick and knocked out Mo Darius as well. And you go in there against Sheffel and you're thinking he's going to do that again last year, and he didn't do it. What's going to happen this time? Like, that's what I find very, very interesting. Like, is Sheffel going to be able to kind of outpoint him again? Is he going to be able to kind of move around, use his jab, use his size over Cappelozza and win that fight? Or is it going to be, is it going to be Cappelozza landing those big strikes, having something to prove? We wait and see, and obviously I'll do more analysis, talk more about that. But I think it's a massive fight for the PFL and the second weekend in the PFL with the heavyweight men. And do you know what? I like to call them the heavyweight women as well. Although it's 145 this year, it's not 155 anymore. But Larissa Pacheco is coming back here as well. And if there was the sixth fight, it'd probably be Pacheco and Bud. Although I have one from Cage Warriors later on as well. Maybe I should do the top 7 fights. But yeah, it's a very good card. Obviously, I'll have that broken down as well. But Cappelozza versus Scheffel, I just think, when Francis Ngannou left the UFC, a lot of people were talking about who's the heavyweight, who could he fight outside. And if Bruno Cappelozza proves kind of that last fight was, him taking the eye off the ball, knowing he didn't even need to win it, having no motivation, and he comes in and he wins this again. Like, Bruno Cappelozza could be maybe the best heavyweight outside of the UFC. Like, I think that much of him. I think he's really, really, really good. Like, he's a record of 15-6, okay, but he's lost to some good guys. And as I said, he's 9-1 in his last 10 fights. That's absolutely brilliant. And it's a massive fight for him, and it's one I'm massively looking forward to as well, to start off the year. The night after that then is UFC 287. And it is Israel Adesanya against Alex Pereira. Pereira now the champion after beating Adesanya in the 5th round of their fight last year. And look, there's probably, I don't know, is there anyone listening to this who doesn't know this story now? Pereira knocked him out in kickboxing once, won a controversial decision against him in kickboxing the next time. The last fight was a somewhat controversial stoppage, I think, although I thought it was good. At the time I thought it was like, well, this is a good 80% correct stoppage. The more I look at it, I'm like, I think I'm down to maybe 65-60% now, but it was I still think I don't think there was anything wrong with the stoppage, but he has beaten him now twice in kickboxing and once in MMA. And for Pereira, the fact he's still so young in his career is a big interesting part of this for me, and I'll tell you why. So he's only had 8 fights in his career. Adesanya 25 fights in. And so recently we had Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards, right? And the big talk coming out of that was, and even from some people coming into it, was, when do you really see, and this was, well, they were both knocked out, Adesanya and Usman. I think Luke Thomas had stats about it, about the percentage of people who've been knocked out coming back winning their next fight, and that's low. But from the championship point of view, how many people actually lose their title, lose it by being knocked out, and then come back and win it again? In an immediate rematch, I think there's been one ever, if I'm not mistaken. GSP did it, but it wasn't immediate. And I think there was, I don't know, memory doesn't serve correct now, but I think it happened once, and only once ever. Plus, I said 8 fights versus 25 fights. Who is improving more at this stage of their career? Will it be Adesanya, 25 fights in? Or will it be Pereira, 8 fights in, who's still very much learning the ways of mixed martial arts? Adesanya is still young enough, only 33 years of age, but still, I don't know, maybe that's an analysis, right, that I would not make unless we had seen what we saw with Usman the last day, and it gave us, Usman and Edwards, and it gave us kind of a pause to look back and actually analyse the stats and look at the analysis and say, right, I picked Usman coming into it, which is grand, I make wrong picks all the time, as we all do, but we need to look sometimes and analyze these situations and think, is there a correlation here? Is this a thing that we should always be keeping firmly in our minds? And after looking at the history of it, where there's only, I think 2 or 3 ever that have kind of lost their title in such a fashion and got it back eventually, is it right to be calling kind of Adesanya the favourite coming in here, or to even be picking him from my point of view? I think that's a massive story coming in here. Like, can Adesanya be one of those people? Like, people have called him a special fighter throughout his MMA career, and you know, I've always liked Adesanya, but kind of think like he made what Adesanya did really well in the early part of his career was he made kind of those takedown defense adjustments that the old school. I saw Chuck Liddell throwing punches the other day with Glover Teixeira that the likes of Chuck and people like that made back in the day. They kind of just the sprawl and brawl, but less of the brawl with him and more of the sprawl and technique, maybe if you want to put it that way. But the rest of his game, I think he figured out the toughest part of the game for someone like him, and then he spent the rest of the time kind of settling, if you want to put it that way. Now, that's a very harsh statement to say, but I actually believe that, right? For two reasons. I believe it because he's so talented, and I believe it because the division he's in is so bad that he almost rested on his haunches a little bit. And for the point I was making earlier on about who's improving more at the moment, Pereira or Adesanya, it has to be Pereira because, okay, he's newer, but also because Adesanya was resting on his haunches for a long time. Now, will the loss have made Adesanya go to another level? Maybe. I said that with Usman coming in, and I was wrong. Was that because of Usman's injuries? Was it because of the big knockout? No, Adesanya took a knockout as well, but not as big. I'm sure he has a bit of injuries as well, but not as big as Usman, I don't think. He's not as old to the game as Usman is, even though he's not that old in terms of age or the amount of damage he's taken or anything either, but he's, you know, it's obviously worn on him an awful lot. More than Izzy, I think, probably, yeah. So, I'm torn on it, and I'll probably give my pick later in the week or whatever, but I think it's such an interesting discussion on this fight. Like, is Israel Adesanya going to fall the same way as almost everyone else has fallen? Or is he going to be that special guy who wins it back? And then if he does, what's going to happen in the trilogy? And that's why I'm really excited about this fight. Like, coming into the first fight, I thought Adesanya would win that fight going away. I thought he'd win it easy. And like, he kind of was. He was winning it easy, and it was a real mental lapse that let him down. Like, it was a technical lapse. And I remember doing a podcast straight afterward and looking at it, like how Adesanya won that fight. I think very simply how he won that fight was he fought extremely well coming off the cage, right? Every time he got pushed against the cage, he jabbed, used his footwork and got out every single time for the first 4 rounds. Every single time to get him out of trouble. Never got into trouble. There was a couple of times the fight obviously went against the cage, it went to the ground and all of that. In the 5th round, he stopped doing that. Did he coast maybe a little bit? Did he think, I'm ahead, I'm just going to win this? I'm just going to I'm not going to take that chance to jab my way out. I'm just going to not do anything. I'm going to freeze here for a second. And he ended up getting knocked out because of it. Like, that's a technical lapse, absolutely. But I was talking to my guy, Harry Paolo, I've had on the podcast a few times in a podcast afterwards, and he kind of made the point to me that why at that stage did you decide to make that technical lapse? If that was a technical issue, you surely would have made it in rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4, and he didn't. He only made it in the 5th. Was he that tired? He didn't seem it. You know, it wasn't for a guy with the cardio levels that he has. It wasn't the most taxing fight in the world. You know, he could go 10 rounds fighting at that pace. So it had to be a mental kind of downfall for him. And you know what? It felt like it was. Now, if that happens to you against the guy who's beaten you twice before in kickboxing, how can you overcome that? Like, how can you overcome that massive mental lapse? That's a question only Israel Adesanya can answer, and a question that can only be answered on Saturday night when they get inside the cage and they have that fight. And you know what? I am massively, massively looking forward to that. So yeah, that's the second fight for me. I'll move on. The next fight I'm looking forward to is the next week's UFC headliner, and that is Max Holloway versus Arnold Allen. And it's really one of those axis fights. One guy kind of on his way up to the title shot, and one guy who's lost a few title shots. Is he on his way down? Is he going to bounce back up? This is how we'll find out here on Saturday week. Holloway, just like the amount of things he has won throughout his career, like up there as one of the best MMA fighters in the world for a long time, you know, beating, Yair Rodriguez, Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar, Brian Ortega, and the list goes on and on and on. Anthony Pettis, Ricardo Lamas, all of them. And then he met, obviously, Alexander Volkanovski, lost to him twice, came back, won a couple of fights, earned it again, lost to him again in a very devastating fashion the last time. And look, he's not getting back maybe ever again to fight Alexander Volkanovski. Now, he's fighting Arnold Allen, who is the opposite of that. He hasn't had all those big chances. He hasn't had all those big names because he hasn't been given the opportunity. He's just been winning and winning and winning. Now, he's beaten some good guys. He beat Calvin Kattar, obviously, it was the knee injury. Beat Dan Hooker well, but he beat Sadiq Youssef and many more. Nick Lentz, Gilbert Melendez. So Mads Burnell. He's been a lot of good guys there, Maybe we underestimated sometimes the amount and the level of guys that he's actually beaten, but he's beaten some very, very, very good guys, after coming through the Cage Warrior scene. And what is it, 10-fight win streak at this stage? He deserves he deserved the title shot, but he didn't get the title shot. And then there were two other guys put into an interim title fight, one of whom just lost to Max Holloway, and he didn't get in there either because, they needed to make a fight and need a bit of an injury, and it was going to be a couple of weeks later. And, the way the UFC machine works, he was the one that lost out. And he not only lost out, but he gets probably the second hardest fight in the division after Volkanovski. He really drew the short straw. Now, you have to make a fight for Max Holloway, absolutely. You can't just let him rot. He has to fight someone good, and he has to fight someone on the way up. Arnold Allen, he's found himself in a really unfortunate position where he didn't get a title shot he deserved. He didn't get an interim title shot that he deserved. And now he's not getting a title shot again because the interim is to fight the official champion. So he has to fight someone, and he ends up fighting Max Holloway. I'll say it again. I don't like any of that. But what I do like, and I hate all of that, if I'm being honest, I think Arnold Allen was robbed of an opportunity. But it's still a great fight. I don't think Colby Covington deserves the title shot, but you know what? Colby and Edwards is a great fight. Do you know what? I'm looking forward to this fight. And that's with this as well. And I just think that story, look, the fight itself, we can talk about the fight and we can break down the intricacies of the fight. Maybe we'll in a second. But I think the storyline of both of these guys is massive. Because, I mentioned at the start, it is the ex-champion trying to hold on to that position. And the last time he tried to hold on to that position, he did it. He won these two fights in a row. I just mentioned them. Against Kattar and Rodriguez. He won those two fights in a row and got back to the title spot. Now, it might be a bit tougher this time considering he's lost 3 times to Volkanovski. Absolutely. But is he still good enough to do that? Absolutely, he is still good enough to do it. Will he do it straight away? Will he beat Arnold Allen? That's another argument, and we can break down that fight, and I'm not picking my winner today, but we'll pick it at another time, right? But is Arnold Allen good enough to win a championship level fight? Because make no mistake about it, he's fighting in a championship level fight over 5 rounds for no championship. If you were to ask yourself, right, who is the best fighter in the UFC right now? Let's say we pick the second best person in each division, right, after the champion. Who is the best fighter in the UFC now that doesn't hold that title? You could absolutely argue Max Holloway, right? Let's go. Let's do it. Let's do it for argument's sake, right? We're here having a chat. Heavyweight, who's the second best? In the UFC, we'll forget about Francis and all that. Who's the second best? Pavlovich? Is he better than Holloway? I would say no. At 205, there's kind of 2 champions there at the moment. Who's the next best? Blachowicz, maybe Rakic? No, I don't think either of them are. Is Adesanya or Whitaker as good as Holloway? Maybe, but I would still say Holloway is better than him. 170, Colby or Usman. Maybe there's the argument there as well, but is it definitely? Are they definitely better? Probably not. 155. Poirier is there and he's beating him, but it's the weight class. 135 is the best division in the world, so maybe there are a couple of lads there who are close. Is Cejudo better than him? I don't think so. 125, whoever, the Figueiredo. I don't think so, and in the women's divisions as well. With maybe Shevchenko is the one. Maybe Shevchenko, but is Shevchenko the same as she used to be? I don't know. And then Rose and other people. Anyway, the point being, if he's not the best, he's one of the best. He might be joint best. And Arnold Allen is drawing that shot. It's like if Shevchenko didn't get the next title shot and Aaron Blanchfield is coming on and Aaron Blanchfield has to fight Shevchenko to earn a title shot. That's how tough it is. Like, how unfortunate is Arnold Allen that he wins 10 fights in a row and this is who he meets. Now, as I said again, a very good fight. I'm looking forward to it, but I can't help but feel it's massive it's unfortunate for Arnold Allen, but also like he can't be thinking that way. He is thinking this of an opportunity to put himself in that place. Like, if he wins this fight, you have to give him the title shot. You absolutely have to give him the title shot. There's no doubt about it. You have to wait out, like, wait till Yair fights Volkanovski and fight the winner. That's it. That is it. And it is the opposite for Max Holloway. Like, if he doesn't win this, then those chances are gone and diminished even more. You might be talking about moving weight classes. It's a massive fight for that move. Absolutely huge. The next fight, number 4 from Bellator, April 22nd. This is an odd one now. I was looking at these fights the other day and I picked them out. And I picked out Rafueon Stots against Patchy Mix. Okay? Great fight in itself. But it's taken on a whole different meaning since I picked out this fight the other day because, last week now at this stage. But since this fight was obviously made, and we know it's through the tournament and for the interim title because Sergio Pettis got injured in the middle of the tournament. And then the winner of this, is the interim champion. They're going to fight the champion. But no, they're not, because Sergio Pettis is actually fighting Patricio Pitbull, who's coming down to try to be the champ. The 3-way champion, the first time ever anyone's done it in a major organization. And it's a great fight, as is Stots versus Mix, which I'll talk about more in a second. But it also makes that very weird. Like, I put out a tweet the other day and Bellator will give it out to me, but like, still, who's the best in that division? Is it the bantamweight champ, Pettis? Is it the featherweight champion that's now down there, Pitbull? Is it the interim champ, Stots? Is it the challenger for the interim championship, Mix? Or is it the possible winner of the tournament, which is either Stots or Mix? Like, there's five different options there now, 4 different options together. But still, that mix of madness is a bit mad. It is a bit mad. I love the fights. I love these two fights. I love Patricio coming down. But I don't like this for Mix and Stots. It's unfair. It's just simply unfair on them. They've gone through this whole tournament. Okay, they still have the interim title, so they're going to be the next in line or whatever. It's grand. But why should they have to wait? Like, this is happening April 22nd. Is it June 15th? So April, May, June. 2.5 months-ish. Then they have to wait another probably 3 to 4 months. Is that going to be in Ireland? Oh, maybe in Ireland. Never mind. Never mind. Bring that on over to Ireland. We'll have it here. Never mind. No, but you know what I mean. They'll have to wait 6, 7, maybe, you won't know how long. If someone gets injured or whatever, to get their actual fight after waiting a year to be able to finish the tournament and all. Now they have the £1 million and all if they win it, fair enough. Okay. But I do think it's a little bit unfair. But I'll stop giving out about that. The fight itself, Stots versus Mix. It's been a great tournament. Now, it's all of these tournaments, there's always a big issue in them with someone getting injured or something. But for Bellator, absolute kudos to them. The tournaments they've put on have been phenomenal. And this one is no different. The levels of fighting, the levels at bantamweight all over the world are phenomenal. And this was no different. But you have to look at this fight and think that it's going to be an absolute barn burner. It's just going to be such a great fight because Stots will throw at you. Stots will throw at you. Very good wrestling. Mix will throw at you. Mix has improved so much everywhere. And him on the ground, his jiu-jitsu, it can't be underrated. So Stots takes him down, he could be putting himself in a world of trouble. He could be putting himself in an absolute world of trouble in this one. So, both of these lads have come through the fire here against some very, very good fighters and ended up getting to this position. And it's a massive fight, and one I'm really, really, really looking forward to. You know, they also have they have that big fight for the $1 million and for the interim belt, but you know, they also do have maybe Patricio down the line, you know, which is maybe even a bigger money fight for them. So the negative might be turned into a positive. But yeah, this is definitely one of the fights I'm looking forward to the most this month, and I can't wait for it. Right, the fifth fight I'm looking forward to is in Ireland, Cage Warriors 153 in the 3 Arena, massive venue for the kind of the return of Cage Warriors to Ireland in that big arena. You know, they were in Cork at the start of the pandemic in a smaller arena, and you know, the plans were then, I suppose, to go to the Dublin and go to a bigger arena. And it's obviously been delayed, and now they have finally gotten back. And the fight, look, there's some great fights in this. There's some very good fights. I'm going to obviously break down an awful lot the main event in it, right, between Rhys McKee and Judo Jimmy Wallhead, and we will do that. I'll have a full preview out for the card in a couple of weeks. But the fight I'm most looking forward to on it is my namesake, James Sheehan, is fighting Oban Elliott, right, and it's at the welterweight division. Now, if you don't know these guys, let me quickly tell you who they are. So, James Sheehan is fighting out of Ireland here. He's fighting out of Team Rhino, the same place where Neil Serio is from. Andy Ryan is the coach. Paul Redmond, you know, a very, very good team in Ireland. He was a guy who came through the toughest of the tough starts in MMA. He was Ian Gary's debut fight, you know, and we know where Ian Gary is now. And in my opinion, he was Ian Gary's toughest test to date. He's the best fighter Ian Gary's fought. Now, I mean that. I think he's a really, really good fighter, right? So 2 of his first 3 fights were Ian Gary and Matthew Bonner. So Ian Gary, welterweight champion in Cage Warriors. Matthew Bonner, who went on to be the middleweight champion. So 2 of the toughest fights you could possibly get. He won 1 fight in the middle of that against Dylan Manning. And since then, he's gone on a 5-fight winning run. He's beaten some good guys. O'Meal Brown, who was a top prospect coming through. He's, you know, he was 2-0 at the time. He's 5-2 now, but has, you know, beaten some good guys. Won a fight there a couple of weeks ago. He lost against Skibinski, who's a very good fighter, but he's beaten Junior Horaglio and a few more as well. A really, really, really good prospect and a good fighter. He beat Karel Michalak, who was 3-1 at the time, and beat Jamie Richardson last time, most impressively, who was 11-7. And he's just improved and improved and improved. His striking has improved. His ground game, his grappling. He's a good athlete. Very, very good. And Oban Elliott, then across him from Wales, is one of these guys. He's 7-2, but he's one of these guys that takes anyone, anytime, anywhere. He doesn't care. He was one of the top prospects coming through at lightweight. He ran into Mike Figlak, who is now in the UFC. He ended up losing that fight, went up to welterweight, fought one of the biggest welterweights you could find in George McManus. Ended up fighting Matters Flaminas, who, you know, 5 fights into his career, Matters Flaminas, who is, you know, a veteran now of 11, 12 fights, maybe more even, who is a very tough matchup. Ended up losing that fight, but has bounced back with 3 wins in a row. And, you know, he was supposed to fight Daniel Skibinski, who I mentioned beat O'Meal Brown earlier on. A really, really tough matchup. Jumped into that, no problem. The fight didn't happen. But the level he has been, he beat Matthew Bonner, who I mentioned earlier on, the former champion. He went up to middleweight on short notice and beat Sean McCormack last time out and looked good doing it as well. So this is probably the number 1 contender bout, I would say, for the welterweight title, which is in the main event. I think this is the co-main event, and this is an absolutely brilliant fight. Oban Elliott, he's, you know, I had him on here in Sherdog once. He told me this story about his father, who's passed away, was a boxer, and he wears the same shorts that his father wore. And, you know, he's very good on the ground, but he's good with his boxing as well and good all around. But it really kind of means more to him, I think, than a lot of people. And his story is absolutely great. And he is a very, very, very good fighter. And, you know, we love to see the new guys coming in. You know, I'm sure Paul Hughes will be in the UFC soon. Ian Gary's there. Paddy Pimblett is there. Joy Herbert and Nathaniel Wood coming over from Cage Warriors. Here we are. One of these 2 guys, I think both of these guys will end up in the UFC, right? I firmly believe that. I think they're good enough. But one of these 2 guys will probably fight for the title next. And, you know, it could be, you know, maybe Reece McKee will win and go to the UFC. So it might be an interim title or something like that. One of these lads will probably be in the UFC in 2024. You know, so this is the time to look at him and say, I was looking at that lad before he was in the UFC, before everyone knew about him. You know, to be a bit of a to be a bit of an MMA snob, you can do that. So this is one of the fights, student, and it's a very good card. There's a lot of good fights on it, but this is the one that stands out to the people in the know, the local fans. These are two real fighters, two real up-and-comers, two guys who will fight anyone, who will back themselves to beat anyone, and they're fighting each other. I love this fight so much. This is what MMA is all about on the way up. It really is. Let's have the best prospect fight the best prospect to get to the title shot in Cage Warriors, to get to the UFC. And I love it. I absolutely love this fight. And it's a toss of a coin. It's a real toss of a coin fight. I can't wait for it. So that's it, lads. That's it for me. Those are my 5 fights for the month. And by God, they're all very, very, very good fights. They're all good fights. They're actually, you know what? They're all at different weight classes as well. We have a heavyweight fight in Cappelozza, Scheffel. Middleweight fight, Pereira versus Adesanya. Featherweight fight in Holloway versus Allen. Bantamweight fight in Stots versus Minks. And a welterweight fight in Sheehan versus Elliott. So, if you're not looking forward to that, you should be. I leave it there, lads. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com. And I'll see you all next time.